This is why when an atheist says, I don't believe in God, when an atheist says, I don't believe in God, 99.9% of the time, the God that he doesn't believe in, we don't also believe in. It's very important that when we discuss these topics of God and Deen and Islam with anybody, first we highlight and we refine our understanding. What do we mean by this? What do we mean by this? Yes? So when an atheist or mulhid or dahri, they ask, who then created God? This is an indirect rejection of their very own existence. Why? Is that I was speaking to an ex-Muslim in Doncaster once, and I was using this verse. So you tell me, how did everything come? Why do we have something rather than nothing? Explain. And he was struggling. Okay, I said, let's not use the word Allah and God. What's the cause of everything? What's the sabab? As Imam Ghazali calls it, as-sabab al-awwal. Obviously, we can't call Allah sabab, because Allah is free from these things. But just for our understanding, what is the first cause for everything? How did everything come? Nothing? How can happen? It created itself? That can happen. It was created by a created being? That also can happen. So the only possible scenario is that everything came from a created being. Uncreated. I want to discuss questions against Islam. Now look, questions against Islam. The thing is, there's so many questions, yes? There are so many questions, but what we need to understand is the foundation principle of Islam. If we get this right, inshallah ta'ala, everything else is furu. And what is that? That's the mafhum of Allah. Mafhum al-ilah. So let's give this session a title, yes? So we know what we're talking about, inshallah. And then from there we'll put all the questions in. مفهوم الإله في العقيدة الإسلامية وأثره في مناقشة الإلحاد المعاصر. The conceptualization of a God in Islamic theology and its impact with dealing, its impact in dealing with the emotional apostasy or contemporary heresy. The thing is, all of these questions that come regarding Islam is because they don't know who the creator is, they don't know who the legislator is, they don't know who the lawmaker is, they don't understand the authority. If a person accepts the authority, and you say government, you accepted the government authority. When a government legislates a law, you have to follow. Where's 30 road, you do 30. 40 road, you do 40. You don't say why is 30 and why 40 there. No, you do it, you submit. Because you've recognized the authority. So a lot of these questions that come, a lot of them are trivial questions, especially from atheists or non-Muslims or Islamophobes, is because they have rejected the creator. They don't recognize the supreme authority. And I want to concentrate on this, the concept of God. What is a God in Islam? We need to understand this. The reason I'm concentrating on this is because part of my, inshallah, hopefully, if Allah Ta'ala accepts, part of my PhD thesis is I'm doing on transcendence of God, Tanzih of Allah, according to Imam Sanusi, Muhammad Yusuf Sanusi. But ultimately, inshallah, I want to publish this work. You make dua, inshallah, Allah Ta'ala accepts it, and this book is published. I don't think there is a book like this in the English language. There may be, maybe not. But I do believe this is a very important question, especially here in the West. Why is the concept of God, I'm using the word God here, okay, because we're dealing with different types of gods. Why is the concept of ilah or God in Islam the only true concept? Yani, if you speak to an atheist, for example, I mean, you'll find this on YouTube. So Richard Dawkins was the biologist and the professor of Oxford University. He asks this quite boldly, and this is one of their arguments, is that you're saying believe in a God. Why My Muslim God. You only believe in God because you're born in a Muslim family, you were born in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or you're born to a family in England that are from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. If you were born in India, for example, you would worship several gods. If you were born in Greece or Italy, you worship the God of the Christians. If you were born in Tel Aviv, you will worship the God of the Jews. Yani, what evidence do you have that the concept of God in Islam is the only true concept? And I believe that our ulama, especially the Ash'ari and the Maturidiyya, the ulama of Kalam, scholastic theology, the way they've explained the tanzih, the transcendence of God, that Allah Ta'ala is free from these things. You know, just we say Urdu Paki bayan karna. That Allah is free from limitations, He's free from physicality, He's free from dimensions, He's free from space and place, He's free from, Imam Tahawi said, Ta'ala anil hudud wal ghayat wa la tahwih al jihatu sit. Allah is free from boundaries and directions, and the 6 directions do not encompass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, etc., etc. I believe this plays a pivotal role and a very important role of why the God of Islam is the only true concept of God. Because everything else, if you look at any other God, is a body. Christian theology is a person sitting on a chair. Yes. Jews also. Jews are the first mujassimas in history. The first anthropomorphists, the first people to give God a body figure was the Jews. This is why the Quran says, Allah says, that we created the heavens and this earth in 6 days. وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ. We did not get tired, because the Jews believe that God created heaven and earth in 6 days and then He took rest on the 7th day. So I believe this, the concept of tanzih, Allah's transcendence, is very powerful. Very, very powerful. And I think this is what answers the ultimate question, that why God in Islam is the only true concept, because everything else leads to contingency, makhluk, creation. This is why when an atheist says, I don't believe in God, even an atheist says, I don't believe in God, 99.9% of the time, the God that he doesn't believe in, we don't also believe in. Let me come back to this topic of مفهوم الإله في العقيدة الإسلامية وأثره في مناقشة الإلحاد المعاصر. What is the understanding of God in Islam? What is the understanding of a God or ilah? And why do we need to know this? Why do we need to know the understanding of God? Because mafahim and understanding, the truth is, our entire life, our interactions, our movements, our decisions is all based on understanding, mafhum. We have a certain understanding of something, then we make that decision. Yes or no? You buy a phone. Why do you buy this phone? Because you have a certain mafhum of that phone. Yes? You go to a certain place. Why? Because you have a certain understanding of that place. Our judgments that we make on a daily basis and the decisions that we make is based on mafahim, understanding and concepts. Therefore, it's very important to have the correct understanding of Allah. It's very important to have the correct understanding of ilah. Because if you don't have a correct understanding of ilah, then your interaction and your relationship with that ilah will also be according to your understanding. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Therefore, it's very important that when we discuss these topics of God and Deen and Islam with anybody, first we highlight and we refine our understanding. What do we mean by this? What do we mean by this? Yes? So, what is ilah in the Arabic language? What is ilah in Islamic theology, at least in Aqidah? I mean, ilah, it's the ultimate creator, khaliq, sani. But the word the mutakallimun use is wajibul wujud. Wajibul wujud. God is a necessary existence. God is, if you want to summarize ilah into one word, technical term is wajib al-wujud. And ulama have done this. In the ulama of kalam, they've mentioned that ilah is wajib al-wujud. Now what is wajib al-wujud? I'll break this down, okay? I'll break this down inshallah so you understand. Wajib, what does wajib mean here? Can anybody tell me? What does necessary mean? For the universe to exist. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But what does necessary here mean? The word necessary. Sorry? Required. Okay. I mean, that's I think that's a synonym of maybe. Wajib here is a hukm aqli. What is it? It's a rational judgment. It's not wajib in witr wajib. That's hukm shar'i. Witr wajib, that's hukm shar'i. That if you do, you get thawab, and if you don't, you'll get punished. That's hukm shar'i. Yani that hukm, that ruling of wajib came from the shar'. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This wajib is not of shar', this is of the aql. And with our aql, we say this is wajib. So this has a different meaning. Yani, wajib here means whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Wajib, what is it? Whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Tamam? Wajib. Guys, you're writing this down. You'll need this, trust me. Yes? Wajib is whose non-existence cannot be perceived. This is what wajib means, okay? Non-existence cannot be perceived. Yani, the mind cannot imagine a creation without a create is impossible. Yeah? It's like saying to someone, hypothetically speaking, you slap someone and you say, oh, that slap came from nothing. Slap just came. There's no cause behind it. So this is wajib, okay? Then you have something called mustahil. Then you have something called mustahil. What does mustahil mean? Impossible. What does impossible here mean? Again, this is a ruling of the aql. Mustahil here means whose existence cannot be perceived. Mustahil, whose existence cannot be perceived. Like for example, square triangle. Can you perceive a square triangle, guys? Can you picture a square triangle? Can you tasawwur ta'aqqul of a square triangle? No. Huh? So square triangle is what? Mustahil, for example. So you have wajib, whose existence is necessary. You can't, non-existence cannot be perceived. Mustahil is whose existence cannot be perceived, like a square triangle. Two alfaz, okay? Third one, just remember the third one, inshallah. Mumkin. Mumkin. What does mumkin mean? What does mumkin mean, guys? Possible. What does possible mean? Again, this is a hukm of the aql. Mumkin mean whose existence and non-existence equally can be perceived. Whose existence and non-existence can equally be perceived. Right, okay? Does everybody understand these three terminologies? Wajib, mustahil and mumkin. The other word for mumkin is jaiz. This is not a fiqh, jaiz na jaiz, bhai. Yes? This is, jaiz here means whose existence and non-existence can be perceived equally. Apart from Allah, Allah's that and His sifat, apart from Allah's essence and His attributes, everything is mumkinul wujud or jaizul wujud. Okay. Okay, guys, let's go back to the point I was mentioning. What was the point I'm mentioning? What is ilah? What is ilah? Wajibul wujud. Any ilah, let's not use the word Allah for now. Because Allah, how do we know that our God is called Allah? Because through Quran and Sunnah. So the name Allah is a qadiyya shar'iyya. Yani the fact that we know our God is called Allah, this is through our shara'. But down here we're just talking about aql, because some people they have these negative connotations or God, and they don't believe in Allah and God because they've got this bad image. So okay, let's just talk about the first cause of everything. So ilah, this is the first thing. What's the first thing in ilah? What's the first meaning or the first mafhum of ilah? Wajibul wujud. And now you know what wajibul wujud means. Wajibul wujud means whose existence is necessary, yani whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Of course there are barahin, there are many evidences regarding Allah's wajibul wujud. Okay? We don't have much time to go into those, but just one brief one. In the Quran, Allah speaks in Surah Tur, أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بَلْ لَا يُوقِنُونَ. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks the question regarding the creation. Where has everything come from? So there's 4 scenarios. 3 are impossible and 1 is the only possible scenario. Okay? So what's the first scenario? أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ. Allah asks, did they come from nothing? Number 1. So what's the first scenario? Everything came from nothing. Everything came from nothing. First scenario. أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or are they the creators? Meaning, everything created itself. Everything created itself. And number 3, أَمْ خَلَقُوا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Did they create the heavens and the earth? Meaning, everything came from a created being. And that's what it means. If Allah says, أَمْ خَلَقُوا, did the people create the heavens and the earth? Meaning, are they the creators? Which means that everything came from a created being, because people are created, yes? So how many scenarios do we have so far? 3. Number 1, everything came from nothing. Guys, are you with me? Yes? Everything came from nothing. Number 2, everything created itself. Number 3, come on, louder, guys. Because some of you are feeling sleepy, I can see. Louder. Everything came from a created being. This third scenario also deals with the old cliche of the atheist, who created God then? It comes in the third scenario, okay? Who then created God? What's the fourth scenario? Allah has already mentioned the fourth scenario because it's so obvious. Allah said it can't be any of these 3. When it can't be any of these 3, the only scenario is number 4. But if they're not going to accept number 4, بَلْ لَا يُقِنُونَ, they don't want to bring iman. Which is what? Everything came from a uncreated being. Everything came from a uncreated being. This is not mentioned in the Quran because it's so obvious. Okay, let's look at these scenarios quickly, yes? And then we move on to the explanation of what God means. What's the first scenario, guys? Again, interaction. I want you guys to understand this, yeah? Because I know sometimes the topic can be quite dry. But you need guys to be like with it. Get yourself a coffee if you're feeling sleepy. What's the first scenario? Everything came from nothing. Okay. I made a claim, yes, I made a da'wah in the beginning. The first 3 scenarios are impossible. And the only one is possible is the fourth one. What do we mean by impossible? It cannot be perceived in the mind, okay? Number 1, everything came from nothing. Tell me, why is this impossible? Come on, guys. Put your thinking caps on. Think. Tafakkaru.
There's nothing there then.
Yeah. Nothing by definition can't give you anything. Nothing by definition, by its very definition, cannot give you anything, never mind everything. And if I don't have £10 in my pocket, can I give you £10 from my pocket? I can't. Impossible. It's inconceivable. It's inconceivable. Imagine you're locked up in a room. Nothing can go in, nothing go out. You decide to spend your last few moments in that room. Yes? And then what happened? Half an hour later you woke up, you saw a nice desk in the middle, Apple Mac, you opened and it said, oh reader, I came from nothing. Would you believe that? Imam Razi says, if you give a slap to a child, not that you should, hypothetically speaking, in medieval ages, yes, you have put all these caveats in, yes, even a child will not do your tasdeeq. Even a child will say, this slap came from somewhere. Just imagine you slap somebody and say it came from nowhere. You guys are laughing, yeah? But let me tell you something. The atheists, intellectual atheists like Richard Dawkins, they believe in this philosophy. Do you know this? There's a YouTube clip on YouTube where Richard Dawkins is asked by the presenter, do you believe the universe came from nothing? He says, yeah. Everybody started laughing. He gets angry because he's obviously intellectual, sagacious, Oxford University professor. And he says, why are you laughing? And the presenter just doesn't say anything. It sounds so absurd to believe that everything came from. But this is what they believe. Some of the leading atheists, they believe everything came from nothing. So Richard Dawkins' friend, what's his name? Professor Krauss. He's wrote a book, The Universe from Nothing. Even though nothing is something in that book. It's paradoxical, tanaqud. But khair. So subhanallah, ajib, they will not believe in Allah, but they'll believe in something like this, that everything came from nothing. Even a donkey, Imam Razi says, even a donkey, when you hit a donkey with a stick, even that donkey knows that this noise and this pain is coming from something. This is why Allah says, أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ. They're like cattle, they're like animal, rather they're worse. So this is impossible. That's why you'll see a lecture and you think, wow, thousands of people are sitting and he's talking about how everything came from nothing. It's like, honestly, mind my language, it's dirty with glitter on it. That's what it is. It's dirty with glitter on it. The substance is absolutely rubbish. But because of the phraseology and the English terminologies, they've sort of just beautified the reality. I mean, how can you believe in something like this? Even a cup of tea, I won't believe for a second that this cup of tea came from nothing. How can I believe that the entire cosmos came from nothing? But this is what they believe, guys. This is what they believe. Subhanallah. May Allah give steadfastness upon Iman. Big ni'mah, wallahi, big ni'mah. So scenario number one, everything came from nothing? Impossible. Because nothing by definition cannot give you anything. Number two, everything created itself. Why is this impossible? Why is it impossible that everything created itself? Sorry? There's no start. There's no start. Yeah. It's circular reasoning, isn't it? It's postulating that this bottle, it existed and it didn't exist at the same time. So you are asserting that wujud and adam, existence and non-existence at the same time. If this bottle created itself, that means it existed to create itself. But why is it creating itself if it existed? Yeah, it's like Hamza Zotse says, mashallah, very profound. Because it's like saying to somebody, can your mother give birth to herself? Do you see why it's impossible? So this is impossible. Scenario number two. Scenario number three, what's scenario number three? Everything came from a created being. And this is also the question, who then created? God. Yes? And the atheist thinks, they've asked $1 million question, who then created? God. But the problem with that question is, who then created God? What does that mean? That means God by definition is created. God by definition is created now, because you've asked the question, who created God? Meaning every type of God is created. Remember this. When an atheist asks the question, who created God? He is tacitly and indirectly rejecting his own existence. Again, when an atheist or mulhid or dahri, they ask, who then created God? This is an indirect rejection of their very own existence. Why? Let me explain. If God number one is created by God number two, God number two is created by God number three, God number three is created by God number four, this will lead to something called ad infinitum. Yes? Infinite regress of causes. Yes? And because this will regress to ad infinitum, there will be no creation. There will be no beginning point. Let me give you an example. I used to first give example of a sniper. I don't use a sniper anymore. I use a water gun. Yes? We've sort of changed our examples now. More friendly. Yes? So I've got a water gun. And I'm going to initiate this water onto your waterproof jacket with your permission. Are you imagining this? However, I'm waiting for Maulana Sulaiman Raja Sahib's permission. Maulana Sulaiman Raja Sahib is waiting for somebody else's permission. That person is waiting for somebody else's permission. Then that person waiting for somebody else's permission. And this permission, there's an infinite regress of permissions. Will I ever initiate that water onto your jacket? No. Likewise, if God is created and created and created and there's no stopping point, there will be no creation. This is why Allah says, وَهُوَ يَبْدَأُ الْخَلْقَ. It is Allah who initiated the creation. It is Allah who started off the creation. يَبْدَأُ from bidayah. He is the ultimate cause. Allah is the ultimate cause for all the creation. So the only possible philosophical, logical scenario is that everything came from an uncreated being. And in Islam, that uncreated being is known as Allah. You know, if you're speaking to an atheist, like I was speaking to an ex-Muslim in Doncaster once, and I was using this verse. So you tell me, how did everything come? Why do we have something rather than nothing? Explain. And he was struggling. Okay, I said, oh, let's not use the word Allah and God. What's the cause of everything? What's the sabab? As Imam Ghazali calls it, as-sabab al-awwal. Obviously, we can't call Allah sabab, because Allah is free from these things. But just for our understanding, what is the first cause for everything? How did everything come? Nothing? That can't happen. It created itself? That can't happen. It was created by a created being? That also can't happen. So the only possible scenario is that everything came from a created being, uncreated being. So look, this is Quranic evidence. There are many evidences, cosmological, ontological, teleological arguments. In Kalam, we also have different arguments for the existence of God. But the point I want you to mention here is that when it comes to ilah, Allah or ilah, what is the main understanding of ilah? Wajibul? Remember, wajibul wujud is the main, you could call it, this is the al-rukn al-akbar min mafhum al-ilah. The most significant or the pivotal understanding of ilah is wajibul wujud. And yes, we have evidences for why Allah is wajibul wujud. Okay, like I give you this one example from the Quran. So number one, ilah is wajibul wujud. Does everyone understand what's wajibul wujud now? Okay. Now this wajibul wujud, how many wajibul wujud do we have? One. Okay? I'm gonna link this logically. So you at the top write something like ilah, mafhum ilah. Yeah, ilah at the top. Underneath that you have wajibul wujud. That is the main understanding. That's the primary understanding of ilah. Now under wajibul wujud, the second thing we need to understand, that how many entities does wajibul wujud refer to? Yani, how many dhat or dawat does wajibul wujud refer to? Only one. Wajibul wujud only refers to one being. Wajib al-wujud refers to only one being. Tamam? Why can't it refer to two beings? Remember, what did I say? Wajib al-wujud, whose non-existence cannot be. Remember this. I get the definition. Wajib means whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Guys, this is not too difficult for you, is it? It's easy, isn't it? Yes? Wajib is whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Remember I said this. Wajib is whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Now if you imagine two gods, you can't imagine one of the gods being absent, yes or no? If you have God A and you have God B decides to retire and give his entire role to God A. You can imagine the absence of God B, can't you? The fact that you can imagine the absence of one God is evidence that it's not wajib, it's mumkin. It's not wajib anymore. Because wajib is whose non-existence cannot be perceived. Fahimtum, do you understand? Yes? Now you understand this? Some of you guys are looking at me, you've seen Malakul Maut. Do you understand? Yes? So wajib can only refer to how many entities, guys? One. Of course, there are many other evidences why there's only one God. We have in the Quran, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهُ لَفَسَدَتَا. If there was more than one God in the heaven and the earth, then there would be chaos, the corruption, the nizam and the organization and the particularization and the tartib, etc. would be in chaos. That's different. But I'm just concentrating on the mafhum, the basic concept of what ilah is. So number one, ilah is wajibul wujud. This wajibul wujud can only be one. It can't be two. Impossible. Because if it's two, then it's not wajib, it's mumkin then. Because you can imagine the absence of that God B or second God. Yes? Question now.
Yeah, what are you saying? Because if there's two gods, there's some perception. Is that then like between them there'd be disagreement?
Yeah, there's burhan tamanu. That's another evidence. It's called burhan tamanu. The evidence of mutual disagreement. Yes? That's evidence on its own why there can't be two gods. But we're just concentrating on why there can't be two gods, just based on the concept of wajib. Just looking at wajib, yes? So this wajib al-wujud can only be one. Okay. Now we've understood this. Second, the third step. This wajib al-wujud that is only one, and everything else is mumkin. Everything else is mumkin, meaning everything else can either exist or not exist. And this everything else that exists, who is the cause for that? Wajib al-wujud. This wajib al-wujud that is one, and everything else that's mumkin al-wujud, and everything else that is mumkin al-wujud, it exists because of this one wajib al-wujud. What does that then mean? The third step now is that one wajib al-wujud is ghani mutlaq, is completely independent. Is completely independent. And everything else is completely dependent. Upon who? Upon the wajib al-wujud. Do you understand? Not only is everything else completely dependent in the food and drink, everything else is completely dependent in the very own existence. In the very existence they need this wajib al-wujud. Because without the wajib al-wujud, nothing would have existed. Do you see? So this wajib al-wujud, al-wahid, is one who is completely independent and everything else is completely dependent. Guys, you understand this? That's why Allah says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, antumul fuqara'u ila Allah, wallahu al-ghani. O people, you are in need of Allah. Every step you take, every breath you take, you are in need of Allah. And it's only Allah who is completely independent. This is why, my dear brothers and friends, true independency belongs only to Allah. True independency only belongs to Allah. You can never be truly independent, can you? Or I have my own business. Well, you need customers. You need money, you need food, you need drink, you need oxygen. Every step you take, every breath you take, you need countless of things. How are you independent? You need so many things to live. You need dimension, place and space just to exist. Yes? Only one being that's completely independent. Who is that? Allah. That's why, the feminist group in Pakistan, recently in COVID, they were marching around before COVID, and after when COVID came, they forgot the independency. Mera jism, meri marzi. Mera jism, meri marzi. Meaning, my body, my choice. Wow. This is a fundamental misunderstanding on who they are. This is not your body. If it's not your body, it's not your choice. Why is it not your body? The reason, not you guys, but our perceived interlocutor in this hypothetical dialogue. If this was your body, then when you are born, you would have a say in how you want to look. Yes? What gender you wanted to be. Where you wanted to be born. What nationality you all want to be British. Yes? You would have had all these choices. But you didn't choose a single thing when you were born. A single hair on your body you did not choose. You didn't choose anything. You had no say. And when you will die, the angel of death will strip your soul away from you and you'll have no say. So your beginning clearly exemplifies and postulates with a considerable amount of assurance that you have no say in ikhtiyar. Your death, your fana'iyat, your transience also clearly establishes that you have no say in ikhtiyar. What makes you think and deluded that you have say in between? This is why we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When we die, indeed we belong to Allah, and to Allah we will return. This is not our body and our choice. It is a body given to us by Allah as an amana to fulfill the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this feminism and all these isms and schisms, they're all based on this fundamental issue that they think they own their body. This is a problem. That's why you can be a man in the morning and by Isha become a woman. In the Isha you're the woman, in the morning you wake up as a frog. You can change your identity. Yes, no problem. The way you feel, you become. Why? Because you think you own your body. Hana? Ajib thing is, they're not doing it to nationality. If they did nationalities, you can be whatever nationality. All India, Pakistan will be here tomorrow. We all feel like British. They're only doing it with gender. Subhanallah. They have to do with nationalities too. Because many people feel like British. Hana? And it's only gender relative. Why not age relative? Why can't a 40-year-old man act like a 5-year-old girl? By the way, they started doing this. I said this few years as a joke. Then I knew that. Madness actually. It's madness. Proper madness. It's crazy. Absolute madness. Khair. So let's going back. You see how I'm linking all these fitna with this concept of God? It's very important. If you understand the concept, honestly, I believe that if we understand the concept of God properly, all of these other isms and schisms are automatically answered. Because each ism and schism is based on a false understanding of themselves and a false understanding of Allah. So let's go back. Number one, Allah Ta'ala is, or Ilah is wajibul. This wajib wujud can only be. Remember, on each point there's barahin. But we're not going into those barahin because it'll take long. One. Because he's only one, that makes him ghani, mutlaq, and it makes us faqir. This is why those brothers who say, we need to follow Makkah and Medina wali namaz. Yes, we don't need a person from Kufa to tell us how to pray salah.